When he became General Secretary of the Chinese Communist Party at the end of 2012, several months before being confirmed as president of the country, he gave a famous speech, which is called the speech about 中国梦 or 中国之梦, the China dream. And many people were surprised by that, because normally Chinese leaders don't go out and say, I have a dream. The core of all of this is, and whether he can realise the dream, both for the nation and for its people, is the most ambitious plan since 1978 to reform the Chinese economic growth model. This is a far-reaching blueprint which came out in the third plenum of the 18th Central Committee about a year or so ago. And it is well thought out in terms of where he and the party wish to take the country in the future. They've concluded that the previous growth model of the last 35 years, based on labour-intensive manufactures for export based on low wages and abundant labour, and a number of other characteristics, has reached its use-by date, or reaching its use-by date, and therefore a new approach is necessary.
I take some confidence in the fact that, first, the plan is a good one. Okay, you got to start with a good plan. Okay, I take confidence in that. I take confidence in the fact that when you talk, not only what they say publicly, but when you talk with them privately, they understand the nature of the problem.
And what could go wrong.
And what could go wrong.
Yeah.
And so sometimes when talking to politicians in this country, you wonder whether there's anybody home, you know. And so whether they understand the full nature of the problem. So that I happen to think that the expectations are so high, and again, it's not an intellectual problem, it's a political problem. Reforming, we need fundamental reforms here. We got a very different political system, but let me tell you, the hard thing is not having a bunch of smart people stand up and say this is what we should do. It's getting them done and getting them done in the political system. I think that's going to be a test.
I think there's now been a much deeper, both scientific, policy and political consensus in Beijing that on the wider question of climate change, they must now act globally in their own national interests. That is, if China is to have, as Xi Jinping said in his visionary statement, the China dream of the rejuvenation of the Chinese state, nation, return to a state of being a great power in the councils of the world, and each individual Chinese is going to have their moment in the sun as well. That is, opportunities to expand their living standards and to enjoy a better life. Then they've reached the conclusion this could all be throttled comprehensively by irreversible climate change.
Getting back to the environment and climate, I look at this as being not only essential that the U.S. and China work together if we're going to have any hope of avoiding the worst outcomes. I view it also as very important because it is, when you look at our relationship with China, I think it is as important as any other bilateral relationship. But it's becoming increasingly complex and difficult, and I don't see that abating anytime soon. And so we have plenty of shared interests, but it takes some ingenuity to turn those shared interests into complementary policies and actions that build trust.